Hey, good evening, everyone. I'm an alcoholic and my name's Christian. Thank you guys for this platform. And thank you, Darren, for sharing tonight. I met Darren about 5 years ago, and I'm going to be a little impartial to the introduction because I didn't know what I suffered from when I met him. And he was the first guy that explained to me what the disease of alcoholism looked like. And he explained to me what I suffered from in terms that I could understand. And that forever changed the trajectory of my life and my family's life. In the course of the next 5 years, I get to watch this guy live this program, practicing these principles in all of his affairs. I believe that what comes out of his mouth is a bright light. He's been a bright light in my life and many other people in our community's lives. And I think you guys are in for a real treat tonight. And with anything else, I'll give you guys Darren, man. Thank you, brother.
All right, everybody can hear me? We're good? All right. Dear God, I ask that you shape me into a useful instrument today so that I may be helpful to my fellows, that I may be open to your guidance. Allow my humanness to be a beacon of light for those in darkness. Even in my moments of doubt, may I offer my hand to those on this journey. I ask this so that I may be free of me and full of you, Lord. Help me let go of how I think this world should look and act. I ask this so that I may walk with a servant's heart. Through you, with you, because of you, these things are possible. Amen. My name is Darren, and I am an alcoholic who has recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body as a result of a God that I've come to understand as love. As a result of guidance and sponsorship by multiple people, and a few of them are on this meeting. And I thank y'all for my life. And a fellowship who I didn't really think, I don't know, y'all just didn't look right to me, man, when I got here. And that's funny because I drink vodka and do a couple other things that make me probably not look right to y'all. But when I get here, y'all, I was introduced to the fellowship in a big way. And that was beautiful for a man like me because I didn't realize how much I wanted to be a part of until I got here. And y'all brought me in and let me become a part of that fellowship. And then I would meet a man who would walk me through these beautiful steps and take me through this wonderful treasure map that we've been gifted called the Big Book, so that I could become a part of this fellowship of the Spirit where my relationship with God has transformed me as a broken man who arrived here at 43 years old with absolutely no idea what was to come. Suicide was somewhat of an option, but I had a friend of mine commit suicide right next to me, and I really wasn't really cool with that idea, right? But it was getting close where maybe it's a bridge embankment type of scenario, right? And I just kind of drift off the road. Like, that's how I am when I get here. And I blame God for all of that, and I blame y'all for all of that because of all the things that had happened to me as a child and as a teenager and as a young adult. And so when I get here, I have a list of being a victim, and that's what I think makes me an alcoholic, right? And I don't understand what y'all are talking about. But luckily, God has put so many people in my life. I want to thank this group, especially because I didn't have to do a lot of Zoom during the pandemic because our meeting was able to stay open. And our area had fallen asleep a little bit to the idea of fellowship-based recovery. And what happened was there was a handful of us in this town who had been given the bright light, and we spent a lot of time in the pandemic with guys on couches, man, just taking guys through the steps consistently, multiple days a week, every week for multiple years. And we were able to have our meeting open as well. Our group is Fellowship of the Spirit. We're based out of Ventnor, Big Book study line by line. And once a month, we bring in a special facilitator to allow our community to know that we're not just up there making it up, that this is real, right? And it's a beautiful thing, and we're watching a community transform as well. Christian talked briefly about this thing that we've been trying to do here, and that was shown to me by a man that I met in rehab. God plucked me from Florida and placed me in New Jersey in a little Hoboken town called Mays Landing, and put me in a rehab, someplace I'd never gone to in my life, and introduced me to a man who was so bright that I couldn't understand that it was possible to be that way. I honestly thought he was lying. There was no way someone could be that happy and still be that wild. I didn't think those two went together. And sober. Like, that doesn't make sense to me how that is, but he was the first person to show me what happy, joyous, and free looked like. And his name was Chris Brennan, and he is a dear friend of mine today. And God put him and me together, and he helped us start that group, and helped us show, because that's what he does. Right. And blessings. And Alice was introduced to me not too long after that. Really, it was maybe a couple years. And man, she showed up in a time in my life where I was going through some things that involved deep seated belief systems. And it was suggested to me to take some of those deep seated belief systems to her in inventory. And the craziest part is that she was a part, not literally, but figuratively, a part of that deep-seated belief system that I had to write this inventory on. And I was so afraid, right? And I chose this saying because the discipline of the pause to me represents as bright of a light of God as anything else in this book, I believe, because I don't know what you look like prior to getting here, but pause was never a possibility. And I had been suggested to take this with her, and I had to pause because I was doubtful. And I don't know about y'all, but when I'm doubtful, I get agitated, right? So those two kind of go hand in hand. It's not agitated or doubtful. It's doubtful and agitated. See, because I'm of the understanding, right, that I need to know everything, because I show up here. I walk through life with so little self-esteem and so less than, and so much fear of being unworthy, that I have to have an answer, and I will make it up. There are people running around Florida at this moment with a head full of knowledge that I gave to them based on zero true information, because I can sell the story to you. And for me to come to a place where a pause is a part of my daily action is an absolute miracle to me. So when I had to call her and give her that, I had to pause, because I was extremely doubtful about what this individual was saying would happen to me and through me by doing this, right? Much like when she called and asked me to do this, I had to pause again because I was doubtful, right? And I'm doubtful because, again, I'm still human. And that's why I say that prayer before I come on here. I am still human, and it will show up in various ways. It can tell me that I deserve to have been on here 3 years ago, or that I should never be on here because I'm not bright, right? So when she calls, I have to make sure that when I give her a response to her question of would I be willing, I have to make sure that I'm coming from a place of God. And that is what pause is a place of God. And that is why I could never have experienced it prior to coming to here, because I did not have that relationship with God. He was there, I was not. There was so much me between him and me that it was impossible. And every now and then maybe a little spark might fire through. It's like when you have a closed door and there's a light behind it, and you can see around the rim just little bit of light, right? And that was maybe what I had at my best. By the end, there was nothing. I'd picked up a drink at 12 and didn't set it down until I was 43. There was other things along the way, but those all were used to allow me to drink the way I need to drink and have to drink. Now, I think that's the way everybody drinks, so I don't consider it an issue. I just think maybe y'all are taking the night off, and that's why you leave the bar that night, right? Or maybe you do have some plans that you're sticking to, right? And that's how I see this. Like, it doesn't make sense to me that I believe in my heart, I believe, right, at that moment that it's my heart, that you all get the effect that I get, where that I can breathe again and the world gets really small, man, and I get really big and I can just, all of those bedevilments go away. My personal relationships transform into me being a kind, loving friend, so I believe. I can control my emotional nature, so I believe, right? And then when I was looking at this, as I was thinking, after she'd asked me what I would think of as a thing, and I opened the book after sitting quietly for a few moments during that pause, and it happened to be shining right there. It made me think what it looked like prior in my life, what the lack of a pause looked like in my life, because for me to see the miracle that it is, I need to see the tragedy that it was without. Right. And I can remember sitting on a bar in New York at 10:30 in the morning. I was out in the Hamptons. And I only say that because I want you to know I chase money. Not because I think I'm worthy of it, but because I need it. It's the only thing that may make me feel better. And it also helped keep the other thing that I need in my life, and that's a woman. Right. These are the things that keep me propped up throughout my whole alcoholism, is the chasing of finances, and that I need to be successful, power, money, prestige type of thing. And I'm sitting on this bar, and life's just not looking the way it's supposed to. 6 years being out there, and I haven't struck oil yet. And a guy is sitting next to me, and he's a buddy of mine. And I look at him, and I'm like, you know what? This isn't working. I need to go. Can I borrow some money? And he thinks it's for the normal thing. And I was like, no, I need to get out of here. And the next day I was sitting on a bar stool in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I left everything and everybody. So I don't pause. I don't think about anything. I move. I react. Life did not look right. I'm gone. And I will do that, right? I will do that. I've lived in Florida on both coasts. I've moved within my own neighborhood 7 times. I lived in Rhode Island. I lived in Maryland, D.C., Virginia. I do not stop to allow any sort of logical thought to enter. My experience is emotion trumps logic every time when I have no connection to power. Every time. And when that emotion talks to me in the manner that it talks to me, with the promises of what's over there, what's down that road, when it offers me that promise, I have to go, because there's nothing else I can do. So this pause when agitated or doubtful was never, I couldn't come up with anything where I remember doing that. I remember my ex-wife. She wasn't an ex at the time, but she walked in the house and she looked at me as I sat on the couch, as I often was doing. And she said, I think we should get a divorce. And I looked at her and I said, okay. And that was it. And I would be talking to my sister later on in the phone, crying into the phone about how we were getting a divorce. And my sister asked me a simple question that seemed logical at that moment, but it had not been at the previous moment. And she said, did you ask her if maybe y'all could go get some therapy together and maybe try to save this marriage? And my answer was very simple, and it was no. No, I hadn't thought of that. I didn't even know that was an option. I just figured she said divorce and it was over. Right. And that's how I went about my life. Those are just a few brief examples. There's thousands more just like it, and they all look something similar. Something is going wrong in my life. I take an action based on an emotion. I bring other people into the situation. I cause harm to them, and then I move along unknowing how much damage that I have caused to them. So when I get here and some people start offering me some disciplines, some ideas of what I can do to try to grow up to be a man in my life, none of it seems that intellectually deep, right? The idea of pause seems okay, like as a thought. The problem is I don't realize that I need power to be able to do that. I think this is still a me fixing me type of program. And that took a while, even though I'd been given all the information in the world that that's not how this goes, that this is a God-centered program. I still had so much self built up that it convinced me through a false narrative that we weren't doing that bad. Even though I was sleeping on a couch that wasn't mine, in a place that wasn't mine, that I had a job that had been trying to fire me for upwards of about 10 years. The only thing that saved me is some people liked me, and the devious individual that can exist within me when I'm striving to find an external power kept me from getting caught at my job doing what I do, right? See, I drink everywhere. That's the alcoholic of my type. It doesn't matter where I'm at. I was thinking back the other day, and I remember I was going to get my hair cut, and the guy was like, "Hey, listen, I'm a little backed up." And I was like, "Yeah, no worries. I'll be outside." And I walk outside, and they had just opened up a new restaurant bar next door, and I proceeded to not get my hair cut, right? Because there's something next door that's more enticing to me, and it's called the drink. Right? Like, this is the alcoholic of my nature. I don't go back in there to tell them, "Hey, listen, let me cancel that." I don't pause and double think this and think maybe I can have a drink afterwards. I go next door and have a drink and never come back over. Right. And to me, the beauty is today, I'll share a little something where I was at today, because I want you to see how God's power has transformed the broken man that I showed up here as. Today I was at Rowan University with my girlfriend and her daughter, who is starting her college journey today, and we were moving her into the dorm. And here I am in a little freshman dorm room with my girlfriend and her daughter, a mother and daughter relationship that has slowly been healing. My girlfriend is one of us, and she's in the rooms, and she walks this path as well. And her and her daughter are trying to heal from their earlier journey, and they're in their room and being a mother and a daughter about how the room's supposed to look, and all these things that happen in family dynamics. And here I am as just a boyfriend, so I believe, but I've been invited into this family, and I have a role to play. It's not the role that I want to play. It's the role that they perhaps may want me to play or need me to play. And without a doubt, it's why God has placed me here, is to be a calming presence inside of a house that was never calm. Right. And I want to come in here and fix stuff, because that's what I do. And instead, I accept the role that God has given me as servant, no matter where that is at. And sometimes my humanness affects that. But today, man, was it beautiful. And it was probably because I did a lot of talking to God today, because this had me feared up a little bit in the background. You know, that little voice behind me telling me all about this Pulitzer Prize award-winning talk I was going to give tonight. Right. I gave it at least 3 times on the drive home, man. It was amazing. I wish y'all could hear that one. So I'm sitting in this room with these 2 young women. Right. And they're each trying to instill a little bit of will, because mommy wants to take care of daughter, and daughter wants to break free and be the bird who's out of the nest. Right. And I just got to sit there, and I got to do the things that I was invited to do, and allow them to go about doing what they were doing without needing to share unsolicited advice. Right. Because it was described to me that unsolicited advice is nothing but criticism. Right. And I sat there, and there was multiple times where I wanted to be like, "Hey, and all I did was just remind myself, "Hey, you probably need some things to talk about tonight, so maybe we should practice this discipline today, and let's see how that works out." And what happened was, it was a beautiful experience, and I got to help build some stuff. Right. My boy Christian, man, that's my man. Right. That is my dog he is my road dog from day one. And he's got hands, right? Like, God gifted him with this ability to fix things with his hands, and he's got a mind to match. And I've gotten to spend a lot of time around him watching that. And today I got to utilize those things, because what happens when I pause is clarity arrives. Intuitive thought arrives. All of the 11-step promises arise when I stop being in the mix and allow God to come out. And my mind clears, and all of a sudden problems that seem difficult, or ideas that I wouldn't think I would know how to do not give me challenge. And I got to build some things for her room. And then I got to say, "Hey, listen, why don't you all go to dinner? I have to go take care of my thing." And And I got to wish that young lady a beautiful, beautiful journey in college, because she's getting ready to have an experience that I'm going to let you know. I went to college, right? I don't remember my move-in day, right? I don't know why that is, but I don't. You know what I do remember is my move-out day. Because a year later, I had pretty much failed out. They had removed the scholarship that they had given me, and I had basically drank my way out of that school. And I remember my father showing up that morning. He had drove from Washington, D.C. all the way to the University of Rhode Island. I had drank almost until he got there. And what I remember that day is his consistent reminder of how bad I smelled. This is what I remember about my college experience. Right. And I can see this young lady having a much different experience. And God is so beautiful in my life. As I was walking onto that campus, I ran into one of us, a guy who had struggled and in and out and in and out. And we would ask sometimes, I wonder where he's at. And God answered that question for me today, right? Which he does sometimes. Sometimes he allows me to see some results, because sometimes I pause and ask for guidance and I ask for direction or action, and I may never see the result of that action. And today I got to see it. And this young man was bringing his son to college. And he shared with me how his journey was looking. And it sounds like he has perhaps found a solid footing in this program. And I get to be reminded again of the power that is instilled in me when I just take a moment, just a moment. It doesn't take much, right? I think if I meditate for 20 or 30 minutes, I'm going to be more connected to God. That has not been my experience. My experience comes with humility. And that is what the pause brings to me, is humility, is acknowledging that I have no idea what I should be doing at this moment. No idea. Or I have some idea, and that idea does not look good. So because I've had this relationship with God, and because I am awake enough to recognize that sometimes these thoughts that come through are certainly coming from a narrative of self and not the beauty of God, I can pause. Right. And some days I don't even need to consciously think about it. I just flow. Right. And what a journey that is. I could never have told you that I could go through a day we hear it, wearing the world like a loose garment. Right. Like I never quite understood what that meant until I experienced this serenity of just being. And the power that comes with that drives me forward to continue to seek it. Now, the problem is I have a self that continues to try to rebuild itself and consistently trying to talk to me about why I should, by this point, be better. My sobriety date is February 16th of 2018, and it tells me that I should be better, that my unmanageability, though I know it in my spirit, is because of this spiritual disconnect. Myself will try to still talk to me about the idea that I could be management because I haven't had a drink in a little while, because I do this walk, because I do these things, that maybe me and God could co-parent my life. Right, that maybe I could just manage a little. Can I just manage a little? I mean, just a little, right? And the beauty of these disciplines, and the literature tells us, right? I am undisciplined. I need God to discipline me, right? And when I get here, what I think that means is the discipline that my father used to give me: painful discipline, belts, things like that. Right. And what I come to understand is as this conception has changed and grown, as step 2 opens the door for that to happen, and step 11 kicks the door wide open and allows God to be as big as I'm willing to allow. Right. And what happens is I start to have a God that discipline only looks like teaching. God's discipline only looks like teaching. And when I get to that place, man, this step really starts to move for me, really starts to allow me to see why my humanness is okay, right? It's okay to be agitated. It's okay to be doubtful. It's okay to have fears. It's okay to have resentments, because they have given me an outline of how I deal with those things. And it always involves asking God to come in, come out, however you would like to see it, right? And the beauty of step 11 is that's what I want. I want this conscious contact with God. Something that I had always blamed. I blamed them for what those young kids did to me when I was young. I blamed them for putting me in a household with a father like that. I blamed them for that young man who was sick enough to be willing to commit suicide sitting in a room full of us. And then I knew he blamed me and hated me for the things that I would go out and do because I was willing to go to any lengths to get what I needed. It didn't matter who I harmed. I had an extensive amends list. Right. So when that individual asked me to come to Alice and share with her this inventory, and what that inventory was is on my learned behaviors from that man that I called Dad today, right? I brought that to her after the pause because I understood that the only thing that was blocking me was self, and that is just fear. And I brought it to her, and what it did was just created a relationship between us that seems to me to be unbreakable regardless of where we are. She's in Cali now. She was in Georgia. She was in New Jersey, right? And we have stayed, right? She is such a bright light, but she is such a dear friend, right? And I get to watch individuals like her show me what this disciplined life looks like. But she also allows me to see the humanness that we're allowed, even at 34 years or 35. I'm not sure exactly, but we'll give her, I know it's 30 something, that it's okay to be human, right? We have conversations that are real. The same thing with my boy, real conversations that allow the humanness to come out, right? So that I can share it with them and not allow it to emotionally disrupt my life. I get to share with them and not share it with the world in the way that I would share it with them. And that is in some sort of aggressive, agitated manner, right? Because if I don't know something, boy, what does that mean about me? What do y'all think about me? Pride, self-esteem show up, self-centered fear, right? The chief activator, man. And and that's why this pause is such a beautiful thing, because it allows me to stay free. It allows me to have personal relationships with y'all where I don't have to be the hammer or the doormat. I can have an open, honest dialogue with y'all without trying to jam it down your throat. See, because that's the type of person that shows up here. I don't know how to have conversations. I either let you walk over me so long that all I can do is fire up and fire out, or I just come out swinging, right? And either way, I gotta retreat back to the other one, right? So it's always one or the other. Doormat, hammer, doormat, hammer, hammer, doormat, right? And when I have the ability to have this pause, what happens is God comes in and allows me to talk to you with forgiveness, love, like a human being who is lacking power, like I lack power. Right. So if spiritual, the word spiritual means inside, right? Inside me. So if that means I have power inside of me as you have power inside of you, but yet I can be blocked by self, then why is it not possible that you can be blocked by self? Why can I not look at you with the eyes of compassion, understanding that you may be blocked at that moment? Just maybe I'm not, but maybe you are. So why can't I allow that compassion to happen? But for me to get to that spot, the pause comes in, and that's where God comes out. And that's how this thing seems to work with me, right? I work in a field with severely autistic adults. Most of them have some extreme behaviors, right? There's a lot of noise. It is very loud all day long, whether it's repetitive talk or yells or screams or whatever may be going on in there. And I don't show that for you to be like, oh my God. I share that with you because I want you to understand how necessary this has been for me to walk through this job. A little over a year ago, I was sitting in a job where I was working in a rehab, and God had been speaking to me in that low still voice that he speaks to you in. But if I'm not listening, because I have not paused on it, I have not taken it into quiet time, I have not sat with it because I'm full of fear about being 49 and leaving a job that's so comfortable, but yet I get to a place where the suffering has come to a boiling point, and all I want to do is just run, right? Because that's my solution, is run. I know people all over this country. I could just disappear, pop up in some town with some other AAs, tell them that something had gone down and that I needed to just relax for a little bit, and I could start over and sell my story. And these are the type of things that self will try to convince me of, right? And this is why I need this so bad, because this is what I'm up against, is a mind that was warped for so long before alcohol, right? So in this job, I find I get quiet and I just hear action, right? Take some action. And that action is I needed to put my resume together. I'd been at this job for 4+ years, right? So I did that, and I sat down and I rewrote it a little bit and then sent it out, right? Like it seems to be what normal people do, right? There's not like a big, like, holy cow, can you believe what I did today? I actually fixed my resume and then I sent it out. And then I won a bunch of accolades for that. Like I just did something beyond being adult. So I do that and I only get one response, right? And of course, self comes to me and says, hey, told you, you're not worthy. You're going to be stuck in this job because this is all. Thank you. You're going to be stuck at this job because that's what you get. You have nothing to offer. And at that moment, I have to. Not only am I doubtful, but I am quite agitated because I think my resume looks kind of good if you really understand how resumes look. You know, I mean, I worked for the Ritz-Carlton for a decade plus, man. They're super training stomping ground, right? Blah, blah, blah. So I get a little doubtful and I get a little agitated by that. And I sit and I hear that voice, and what it says is go see. So I show up and I walk in the door. And it's loud. And I was like, whoa, oh my goodness, what is this? And I go into the office and I sit down with the man that was the manager. And within 5 minutes, we're talking about spiritual journeys. And I'm like, wow, okay. All right, God, I see what you got going on here. There's a place for me to grow. There's a place for me to bring a bright light. All right. And then I come in on my first day. And that man approaches me and says, hey, by the way, I'm leaving. I'm going to another position. And I'm immediately doubtful and extremely agitated because I thought me and him were going to do something in this place. And what comes to me is immediately, because before I respond and tell him what I think what kind of move that is, I pause and I say, perhaps maybe I'm replacing the light that was here, right? Maybe that's what God has me here for, to not join forces with this light, but to be a new light, right? So that this man could go and be a light someplace else. Because see, I'm the type of person that needs somebody on my wing to keep me afloat. That's why I always needed a girl. That's why I always needed somebody. I am so afraid to do things on my own. And God was like, no, we're done with that. We're done with that. We are shifting and changing. At this moment, you are going to walk through all of these fears. You are going to learn what it's like to be a caretaker because both of your parents are old. I'm 50. Do some math. Their dad's in his mid to later 80s. Mom's in her late 70s. They've both got physical issues. I get to go down and be a caretaker for them. These are not things that I'm comfortable with doing. I am now because that is what I've done for the last 14 months. All because I took a moment. Right? Multiple times, multiple days in a row. Right? And I sit at that job today. And the other day I had, and I'm gonna finish with this because I can feel the pull has come to a point. Right? And I'm sitting there. And I have one guy over here who is a repetitive talker, and I have one guy in front of me who's a repetitive talker, and I have another guy on this side who's a repetitive talker. And it's just a bunch of noise. And because of the practice that these disciplines have given me, I was able to go inside, hear the voice that just said, you're here, be bright, smile, And I came back out, and that's what I did. And I walked away from the job today in a beautiful space, as I would then go up to the college, right? This is the type of day that I get to have because of simple disciplines that they only ask truly to invite God to the moment. Thank y'all.
Let's get more out of Darren. So I'm gonna go by show of hands, and if I don't see hands, I have some fundamental reading skills, and I will call. So oh wait, a hand went up and a hand went down. I don't know what happened, but Darren, I got a lot out of it, and I want to just so people are getting their questions together. I love that you say that the pause, really, the lack of pause, was it created this tragedy that came from lack. And then you talked about this, what I heard is running, right? These geographics. Man, that's me. Man, that's me. How emotion trumps logic, right? In this rebuilding of ourselves, right? The growing into being able to care for parents, something that I didn't think I was capable of either. So come on, guys. He talked about a limited time, that the time that you spend with God in prayer doesn't equal the depth of connection. Like there was a lot of good stuff in there. So let's see, who am I going to call on? Sin. Come on, Cynthia.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm really grateful to be here. I'm an alcoholic. My name is Sin, and Darren, thank you so much. I'm like right with you there, and I could really, I mean, it's like you was talking about me too. So I think I heard this right through your process. You said that you had a light and that the light was around the door, like the edges of the door, and that's how much light you had. And so since someone has entered your life, which is really great, when you get someone in your life to tell you the truth about yourself and open you right up, let me ask you now, how open is that door and that light?
Man, I would say most days it is very bright. Even this is where the changes happen. Is it is still bright even when faced with the challenges that used to close that door. Right? Those challenges no longer close the door. They may make me, they may take a few hours away from me in that day, but they don't own me the way they used to. They don't dominate me. I don't know what that is outside of grace and desperation to do this thing. Just real quick, it makes me think because the 7-step talks to me about willing to give God the good and the bad, and He will work through me, however. Right, and that's what He does with me. Is He utilizes some of this low self-esteem and some of these pride issues to keep me moving, because He's put people in life who set me up with things. Alice has offered considerations for me to do, and that little voice in my head will say, "Man, you better do that. You want her to think highly of you, don't you?" But what it gets me to do is take the action. See, it's not about what the thought is, it's about what the action does, and God knows that, man. He knows that, and He uses it. And He puts these people in my life consistently to keep me moving, right? And what that causes is that door does not close. So thank you, Sin.
Thank you, Sin. Thank you for the question. My friend Ferdinand, please come on in. You got it?
Okay, there we go. Hey, Alice, thank you. Darren, awesome, man. Really enjoyed that share. You mentioned DMV. I'm somebody born in the D. drank in the D and the M and the V. So we may have that additional bond, my man. But
Absolutely.
thanks for highlighting the pause, because I think that really is something that I need to learn in my life
Yeah.
since I started coming to this program. You
Mm.
touched on the difference between a fix me up and a God-centered program. If you will briefly highlight your distinction between the differences with that, and keep up the good work, man. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Ferdinand. I got a lot of people in Baltimore, man. Love y'all down there. Got a lot of people down there. Well, the fix me up looks like the first year and a half or so, maybe 2 years in this program, that even though I was doing some step work, what I was doing was 10 to 13 meetings a week. What I was doing was thinking that God was going to discipline me for not continuously doing something like that. There was no forgiveness in my world. There was no love. It was consistent. Do good, maybe get good, but certainly do bad. You're going to get bad, right? It was the discipline that my father instilled on me. Unfortunately, also in me, in that idea, that's what I show up here with. And I believe that that's what God would do. And that's what the first 2 years looked like, harshly, very harshly. And there wasn't a lot of growth going on. And then God put Christian in my life, right? And things started to shift, because what I got to do was start letting out some of these things. And I started to see another man who looked like me. And we got to start sharing this journey. And then he started putting a lot of people in my life. And what happened was though it looks like I'm doing great because I have a ton of sponsees, I'm speaking, I'm doing these things, I'm doing a lot of service. The problem is I'm still having conceptions of God that were, I don't want to say harmful, but for lack of a better word at this moment, harmful to my spirit, because I'm still stripping down this old belief system that God needs to be pleased to show me love, right? And what has happened over the last couple years is that idea rarely enters into the conversation. And that's because of the work. And it's taken inventory, and most of that inventory is on forgiveness towards my father. I spend time with that man. At 14, I was sitting at the top of the stairs with a gun, waiting for him to come home. That's who I am, right? Well, that's who I become without power. That's not who I am. That's who I become, right? So what it looks like today is I go down there at least once a month. I spend time with him and my mother, right? And that's what it starts to look like when it's God-centered. And instead of wanting to critique him like he critiqued me on the stuff he's doing down there, I go down there and I invite him into the situation so that he feels a part of it. And it's me and him fixing, not me tearing him down and fixing his mistakes.
Yeah, that's powerful. The love that I have with the power isn't transactional. I can't earn it. Thank you.
Mm.
My dear friend and loved one, I miss seeing you and spending time with you. Marilyn, please come in.
I feel the same way, Alice. Love you so much. My name is Marilyn. I am alcoholic. And gosh, Darren, that was an amazing share. And I needed to hear it all. I was driving, so I couldn't take notes. So I'm going to wait for the recording. But I heard everything you said. And what I really wanted to talk to you about is that pause. And when they said that was going to be what you were speaking from, is we pause when agitated or doubtful, I got excited, because it's that pause that I sometimes have difficulty with, and I can't say that I'm better, but sometimes I get it half, I'm into the action, and then I say, oh, pause. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But so for you, because you talked about, your journey and some of the obstacles along the way. And so how did you get into that practice where, actually you are able to pause? Because you talked about it's agitation and doubtful for you. It's all in one, inclusive. So how did you get to that point where it comes to you before or during the action? You know what I mean?
I'll share a few things on that, because I believe that a lot of this is intertwined. 11, 10, 6, and 7 seem to be very intertwined in my life. My meditative practice helps me so much in my step 10, right? Because if step 10 is asking me to watch, I need to have a little bit of a mind that's slowed down a little bit, right? Because I need to be able to see, right? So that helps me out immensely when it comes to the pause, because a lot of the time what I'm doing is I see it coming, right? I can see something will be said to me and the voice will say, that may bother you. You should address it, right? It won't say it in such a clear, straight thing. What it'll say is check that, right? And that's what I hear is check that, because, but that comes from a meditative practice, right? And I've also listened to some teachers who have shared with me the simplicity of just saying the word God. Just simplicity of saying God, right? Because if you think about that, is that not just a prayer? Is that not just a pause? Because as soon as I say the word, it's there. It has arrived soon as the word has been said, because it's a statement of humility to even acknowledge that it exists, right? And so in that moment of humility, what happens is God shines, right? And it creates the pause. Right? It opens that space. And I would love to tell you, I really would, to be like, man, this thing is all the time. Trust me, there are days when these guys are talking to me at work and they're talking and talking and talking. And I honestly think that they are intentionally doing it to me. Right? These individuals who our book says, if we can look at them as being sick, as am I, right? They are obviously sick. And then I say, well, who's more sick, them or me at this moment? Because they are obviously, I'm the one with the connection to God and unwilling to just say that simple word, God, because it all changes right at that moment, man. As soon as I say it, it changes. Boom. It's amazing. So.
Thank you. Gretchen, please come in. Thank you for having a question.
Thank you for asking me. My name is Gretchen. I'm an alcoholic. I so enjoyed your talk and your continuing remarks, Darren. I feel like you put a lot of energy and effort, and you're sharing your very best self. And it's reminded me of something I heard a week ago or so at a meeting. And when I look at myself in the mirror now, I'm thinking this, and I'm going to share it with you. The man said, across my forehead is a message. It says, don't drink, love God, and be of service. And when things get rocky with my alcoholism, I talk to God about the most really unimportant things, but maybe they're hurting me. And I agree with you that almost instantly a message comes that soothes my soul. And I'm so thankful for that. And I'm so grateful to have heard your talk. And thanks again for being here and sharing with us. Good night.
Kia ora, Darren. Thank you for a great share. When were you last scared, and what did you do?
Last time I was scared, 10 minutes before this meeting. But with something that might actually carry enough weight for it to linger around more than just knowing that all I got to do is show up here, was probably maybe a couple days ago. Me and my girlfriend are walking this journey together, but along right? Not intertwined like I want it to be sometimes, right? But side by side. And she has her own journey, and sometimes I struggle with giving her the dignity to walk that, right? Because again, it's me wanting to find some way to manage, right? Because that's where my fears generate from today is when I try to find a place to manage. And what happens is I get to that place, I try to manage, and quickly I am reminded that I do not have that kind of power. So my only reaction to that is going to be fear, going to be scared, because I can't see how this is going to come out well. Right. So we were having a conversation about something. She had a statement that I immediately got fearful of, because what I heard and what she said were two different things. What I heard was a narrative in my head created by self, right, which is skewed and filtered what she said through that. So by the time it hit me, what I heard was completely different than what she said, right? So my first reaction, emotion trumps logic at that moment, because I'm already off. It got me, right? I didn't see it. I didn't watch. I didn't do 10 healthy. It got in and grabbed some legs and started to try to convince me of the narrative. And at that moment, the only reaction I have available is fear. And that fear, if not dealt with quicker than I did, what happens is it starts to become more than just fear, right? Is I start to get scared, because now I'm afraid. Now I start looking at how it's going to directly affect me, right? And there's nothing more fearful than what's going to happen to me, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. I am concerned about her, but at that moment, I'm concerned about me. And that's a scary place, right? So that's why that reaction is, because I'm afraid of what's going to happen to me.
The heartbreak of my day is that we are out of time. Russell, I so want to have a question from you, particularly for gender balance. Will you please come back next week and be in early in the queue? Darren, I love you. Thank you so much.
Love you, baby. Thank y'all. Love you all.